Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, appreciate everyone's likes, comments, and subscribes. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. So today's video, I want to talk about Bitcoin ETFs. And basically what I want to show you guys is some of these ETFs that have been on the market are just coming to the market. And maybe you have not even known about these things, all right? Because crypto is still, relatively new speaking, but it can kind of become a little cumbersome to have to go to different crypto exchanges, have different types of wallets, and all this other stuff when all you want to do is just invest in Bitcoin and call it a day, right? So these next three ETFs I'm going to be showing you actually give you that exposure to Bitcoin, which is actually really, really cool. So we're going to deep dive into this stuff. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the video. So I just want to show you guys this chart of Bitcoin, just so you guys know where we're at. Right, just so you guys have an idea of how Bitcoin's been doing, and it looks like it's having a almost meteoric rise to the top. Right, if there will be a pullback, I have no idea. You know, just based on this, there might be a pullback at some point in the very near future. I have no idea, but you know, again, there's a lot of people out there, you know, crypto bros and such. They're like, oh, you know, we have a 4-year span. This is a crypto bull run and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I'm not that in tune with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, so I can't really say. But, you know, I will say that at least if you want to get your portfolio exposed to Bitcoin, then these will be excellent instruments to at least consider, all right? At least have an option. So real quick, when you decide that you want to invest in crypto, you're going to have to come to a decision, right? Where do you want to buy crypto from? There's a ton and tons of exchanges out there. Okay. There's crypto.com. There's Coinbase. These are some of the more popular ones. You have Binance. You have Robinhood. Robinhood offers, you know, crypto. Again, they have kind of a very bad reputation. I don't know if I'd honestly buy crypto through them. I don't really. You know, I buy all my stuff through M1 Finance, which is not listed on here, but M1 Finance does offer it. You know, you also have CEX, you have Bybit. What else do you have? Yeah, you have a couple here. eToro. I don't know I think some of these are actually gone or bankrupt, I should say. So don't take this list as, you know, the best definitive list. I just, again, put it into a Google search. All right. I know crypto.com is still available. I know Coinbase is still around. I know Binance is still around. They're going through a bunch of stuff right now. Robinhood obviously is still around. And yeah, so on and so forth, right? But then in your journey to investing in Bitcoin, you're ultimately going to come across, you know, the crypto bros saying that, you know, if it's not your keys, it's not your wallet, right? You should be putting your crypto on a cold storage wallet. You should be putting it on a hardware wallet. You should be putting it on a paper wallet. You should be downloading there's all this stuff you have to do when you mess with crypto, right? Now, these are the different types of crypto wallets, okay, that are available out there. There's cold wallets, there's hot wallets, right? You have hardware wallets, you have paper wallets, desktop wallets, mobile wallets, and web wallets, okay? And then there's also custodians. And I mean, like I said, it goes way too much. It's too much for me. I mean, I don't want to have like 15 different accounts just to hold Bitcoin, right? Especially if I want to sell it. I don't want to have to jump through hoops to have to do all that stuff either. You know, I just want to buy Bitcoin and add it to my portfolio. That's it. That's all I want to do. Okay. But, you know, crypto is just, it's a very tech focused, obviously, it's a very tech focused type of asset. And there's all these types of protections, all these types of alternate ways of holding it, buying it, trading it, and selling it, right? And it's just, for me and for probably a majority of people, it's just too much. So I want to introduce you to 3 different ETFs that you can buy on the stock market that will get you exposure to Bitcoin. And these are actually very, very cool. I actually like these. So the first one we're going to look at is going to be IBIT, the iShares Bitcoin Trust. Now this one is fairly new. It just hit the market not too long ago. I think it actually came out this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it just came out literally last year, January 5th, 2024. So it's still fairly new. But why would you invest in IBIT? First is the access, right? IBIT enables investors to get exposure to Bitcoin through the convenience of an exchange traded product, meaning you could buy this on the stock exchange, helping remove the operational tax and custodian complexities of holding Bitcoin directly, right? Having wallets, having hardware wallets, paper, all those other types of wallets, right? You also have liquidity. So IBIT has been the most traded Bitcoin exchange traded product since launch, providing investors with potentially lower transaction costs. Typically, when you're investing in crypto and say you want to trade it for another coin or sell out of it, there's these transaction costs. I don't know them all. I think like Ethereum has like gas fees, and other coins have all certain types of fees and things like that. So again, I don't want to be bothered with any of that. I don't even care about any of that. I just want to invest in Bitcoin and hold it for the long term. You have integrated technology. IBIT is managed by the world's largest asset manager, which is the iShares, which is true, and leverages a multi-year technology integration developed with Coinbase Prime, the world's largest institutional digital asset custodian. So they're working basically with Coinbase, and Coinbase holds the digital asset, right, which is the Bitcoin Trust. Okay, so it's similar to like a gold ETF where there's a large vault that holds the gold, but the institution, let's say iShares, I think iShares has one. They have a gold ETF, and basically they're tying it to that vault of gold that they own, right? They're basically securitizing it in the form of an ETF. So let's look at the objective. The iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF is not an investment company registered under the Investment Company Act of 1940, and therefore is not subject to the same regulatory requirements as mutual funds or ETFs registered under the Investment Company Act. The trust is not a commodity pool for purposes of the Commodity Exchange Act. Before making an investment decision, you should carefully consider the risk factors and other information included in the prospectus. All right, cool. And then the actual investment objective here is the Bitcoin Trust ETF seeks to reflect generally the performance and price of Bitcoin. Okay, so that's the key there. So let's look at a couple things here. First things first is I want to know how much assets under management this thing has. Okay, because this is important. This ETF has $53 billion in assets under management. That is ridiculous. $53 billion. Okay, so that means there's a lot of liquidity in the event that you want to sell and get out of it, right? I would never put my money in anything under 100 million, period. There's a lot of new funds coming out, a lot of high yielding, high risk type of funds coming out, and they only have like under 5 million, under $10 million. So if something catastrophic was to happen, you're trying to get your money out, you'd probably be hard pressed to get your money out. You could actually end up losing all of your money. So again, knowing the assets under management, big deal. So this has $53 billion, which is, really, really good in my opinion. It does have a expense ratio. If I could find it here, it does have an expense ratio of 0.25%. That is actually very, very low for a crypto ETF, for a crypto-based ETF. I've looked at a ton of other ETFs, and some of them are as high as like 3 and 4%. This one's pretty low. Like you can find ETFs, regular ETFs that cost this much. So just something to think about. So if we're looking at the actual holdings, so it has, let's see, 556,000 Bitcoins in the trust. So it's doing pretty well, right? I mean, if it has 556,000 Bitcoins, I mean, that's a lot. For cash, it looks like it has maybe 21 million. I don't know if this is like the way they do the math. Maybe it's just 21,000, I guess. But yeah, the market value of all their Bitcoins at the moment is about $51 billion. All right, so that's quite a bit of money. So again, this ETF is definitely worth a look at if you want to get exposure to Bitcoin without doing all the jumps and all the hoop, and all that other crazy stuff. If you just want to buy an ETF and call it a day, I think this would be a great starting point. I'm not saying go out and buy it. Don't confuse that. All right. I'm just saying this would be a great starting point. All right. Another one I want to take a look at, and this one I actually thought about putting money into and I never did. But this one is called the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust ETF, and I believe this is the oldest Bitcoin ETF out there on the market. I think this was the first one to market, actually. So if we look at the strategy here, it says Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust ETF is solely and passively invested in Bitcoin. Its investment objective is to reflect the value of Bitcoin held by the trust, less expenses and other liabilities. So currently, let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. So the inception date was 9/25/2013. So this one has 10 years worth of performance data. So this one's a little more on the trustworthy side. But, you know, if we look at the expense ratio, 1.5%. Okay, 1.5%. That is a lot for an expense ratio. All right, and I'll show you guys kind of the expense ratio calculator later in this video so you guys understand why expense ratio is so important, especially if you plan to hold this for the long term. If you plan to hold this for 10, 15, 20 years, like I would be worried about the expense ratio. All right. And then we have assets under management, $19 billion. I'm going to safely assume that a lot of these guys probably moved their money out of Grayscale's GBTC and moved it probably into iBit. I mean, it's a guess. And you know, their custodian is Coinbase, right? So you have iShares and Grayscale using Coinbase as the digital custodian. So nothing else here that you really need to really be concerned with. So let's look at another one. And I really like this one. I think this one is really, really cool because this one combines both equities, you know, the stock market, and coin and crypto, Bitcoin specifically. So you could almost just, like, let's say you're starting out investing, you have no idea what you're doing, but you know you want investment exposure to the stock market and you want investment exposure to Bitcoin. This might be a great fit for your portfolio to start with, right? Because this actually includes both. I think this is probably one of the coolest ETFs out there that combine the two. So this is the Simplify US Equity Plus Bitcoin Strategy ETF, and it seeks long-term capital appreciation by investing in a combination of US equities with Bitcoin. The fund targets 100% exposure to US equities while simultaneously providing a 10% exposure via Bitcoin exchanges, yada, yada, yada. So in the personal finance space, in investing space, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people will say, you know, have maybe 5% of your total net worth in Bitcoin, maybe 10% if you really want to like up that risk. You know, you could have 10%. And I like that this does that for you. It's completely automatic. You don't have to think about it. And looking at the first, let's look at the fees. So the total fees for this is about 76%. All right. So that is a little high. That is a little high. I'm not going to lie. I would do it another way, to be honest. This is cool if you have no idea what you're doing, you don't care, and you plan to hold this probably for a long term. You don't want to mess around with, you know, constantly rebalancing, worrying about this or that. I would think that this is a great product for people who they have professional careers, they have jobs they need to worry about, they have other things, and they don't want to be worried with having to rebalance or manage their investments, right? This is a great passive type of investment for that type of individual, right? But for me personally, I like to manage my own stuff. I like to rebalance. I like to keep things in certain percentages. And I'm going to show you exactly like how you can do that, you know, with M1 Finance here in a moment. But this is really cool. I like this. The holdings, if we look at it, you have GBTC as part of this ETF. So it's actually using this, right, for its Bitcoin exposure, which is really, really cool. And the iShares Core S&P 500 ETF, IVV. Now that is really cool. It's putting it at an 85% weighting and a 10% weighting. And then, you know, they have, it looks like some futures in here and then some T-bills, you know, probably for some, you know, just some safety, or cash equivalent. So that's pretty cool. So again, you have 85% to the general stock market, then you have 10% to crypto, and then 14% to looks like futures, which I'm assuming is futures, right? Uh, Again, this is pretty. This I like this. This is really nice. I don't know why the math isn't mathing here. You have 10%, 85, so that's 95, and then 14%. I don't know. The math isn't mathing for me. Um, but anyways, I still think this is a really cool ETF either way, right? And again, this would be probably for someone who doesn't want to be bothered with rebalancing. And again, that if we look at the assets under management, $37 billion, right? No, wait, thousand, 100,000, yeah, million, $37 million assets under management. So not quite, in the hundred under the, not quite over the 100 million or even over the 10 million. Or well, it is over the 10 million, excuse me. I'm getting all my numbers mixed up. So not quite over the 100 million. It's definitely over the 10 million. But again, for me, I would not personally invest in this just because I don't like that the total assets under management is under 100 million. So this for me would automatically be nixed, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad ETF. All right, let's just kind of keep that in the back of our minds that it doesn't mean it's a bad ETF. If we look at the inception date, if we could find it here, let's see. So the inception date was in 2021, right? Mid 2021. So it does have a little bit of a track record, which is a good thing, so only time will tell. All right. So only time will tell. Again, my criteria is, you got to have at least a couple years of performance if I'm going to invest in you, right? Period. I don't care if it's an ETF. I don't care if it's an individual company. You got to have, or even an individual sponsor, in real estate deals, you got to have some track record. You got to have some type of performance data. So this is very important for me. This wouldn't be something I'd invest in, like I said, but maybe someone else who wants to be passive, doesn't really want to be bothered with it, wants to invest in both crypto and stocks. I think this would be a great idea. So going back to IBIT, right? Or even GBTC, whichever one you care for. How would you include this in your portfolio? Well, this is what we could do, right? You could have something like the Simplify ETF, right? You could have something like SPBC. You could create your own SPBC, right? Call it the UBC. I don't know. But this is what you could do. You can buy 80% of SPY, right? Let's say you had $10,000. You could put $8,000 into SPY and then have 20% or $2,000 in IBIT. That way you're just basically copying this, right? That's just one way to do it. But the only thing you have to keep in mind is you're going to have to rebalance it. You're going to have to check on it from time to time. It is volatile, right? It will be volatile. And, it all depends on your risk tolerance. What do you want to invest in? What's your time horizon? All these other questions, which again, I can't answer all that on this video. We'd have to set up a one-on-one call or something because everyone's circumstance is going to be totally different. But this is something you could do, right? This is something, the way you could look at it. So if you did invest in something like this, let's look at it from, a year ago. So if you invested into this, you would have received about $46,000, right? That's really good. That's really, really good. You would have paid an expense ratio of 0.13%, right? A small little dividend yield, which, I wouldn't really care about. But $46,000, right? That's almost a 50% return. Now, if we compare that, let me move my big head. If we compare that with the S&P 500 a year ago, the S&P 500 has only returned 22.58%, right? That's half. And of course, the reason why is because of the Bitcoin exposure you have in the portfolio. Now, again, we got to keep in mind, past performance is not indicative of future returns. So just because this portfolio did really well a year ago doesn't mean it's always going to be well, because if you have those really large drops, your portfolio could take quite a hit. So this is why you got to be very careful. You have to implement risk mitigation strategies. And again, this is all dependent on your risk tolerance and yada, 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 all those hundreds of questions. All right, so let's look at what expense ratio would be for these different ETFs. All right, let's pretend we put in $10,000, right? 10,000 bucks. Yep, boom. And we're not going to even add any money, right? Let's just pretend we just let it run out. We're going to keep these for 30 years, $0, and the return, let's just say, I don't know, let's say 20% for Bitcoin. I don't know, or let's say 10% for Bitcoin. All right, that sounds normal. Let's say the fund expense ratio was 0.25% for the iShares Bitcoin Trust IBIT or IBIT. And let's see what that looks like. So cost of fees, $11,000, right? $11,000 over the lifetime of the you holding the fund, and that's over 30 years. Now, let's say you're going to be dollar cost averaging. You're going to be putting in at least $500 a month. Let's say over the next 30 years, right? So that's $6,000 a year, right? 500 times 12, so that'll be $6,000. And let's see what that looks like. You see how the cost of fees goes up, right? Because it's for every dollar you're putting in there. Now, let's say we go to that grayscale GBTC and let's add the 1, right? So it's 1.25% for the expense fee. And look at that, $287,000 you will be paying in fees. All right, that's crazy. So, and then if we look at the other one, the SB or SPBC, if we look at that one, it was 0.78%, and the expense ratio $188,000, right? $188,000 versus the $63,000. So again, expense ratios matter. Expense ratio fees matter. You should always be aware of them, always keep an eye on them, and you definitely want to try to go with the lowest as much as possible. But again, sometimes the fees can be worth it if the fund is performing very well. If the fund is, I like to call it the convenience fee. If the fund is doing the things that you don't want to do or be bothered with, then sometimes this is a convenience fee, right? But yes, you always want to be aware of the cost of fees when you're investing in ETFs, mutual funds, or index funds, all right? That is pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you got a lot of tremendous value from this. I think these ETFs are really cool. It's something definitely to consider if you want to have exposure to Bitcoin without having to jump through hoops, open up like 15 different, accounts and have some crypto here, some crypto there, a crypto in this wallet, crypto on this cold storage device, which you also have to buy. And like, it just gets to be too much. Having a simplified portfolio is something that I like, something I like to do. I do personally invest in crypto. I do own actual shares or fractions of a Bitcoin. Will I move over to ETF versions in the future? Quite possibly. I think it is definitely something I'm not putting off the table. I'm definitely just keeping my eye on it. It is something I definitely want to consider in the future. But anyways, with it, guys, I hope you guys got a lot of tremendous value from this video. Please like, subscribe, comment if you're going to be investing in these. Do you think these are great investments? Would you rather own the the digital coins themselves? Let me know your thoughts. All right. Hope you guys, again, got a lot of value. I will see you guys in the next video.